Hello and welcome back to the Behind the Fake podcast. My name is Fate, and my co-host today is Kip. She is back, and we love having her back. Yes.
Thank you.
And I love having a co-host again. Me and Spicy had a great conversation, but at the same time, I don't know, I like having another person just so it's not just me being a dum-dum.
I'm sure that it'll be as good as quality an episode as any, since you're always in them, so.
I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
But today, that actually might be true because today we have another special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself, mystery person?
Yes, I would. My name is that G3 Obsessive, otherwise known as G3. And today I will be reading my fic, Great Expectations and How to Defy Them.
Da 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 da!
Very
Hooray!
Good. And you also are, I might be wrong, but you're one of the winners of the contest we had a bit ago.
Yes, I got second.
Second place,
which
yeah.
completely floored me when I saw that.
Yeah. So, it was a bit ago, but congratulations on that. I can now say that in person.
You.
Yes, very good. I'll put that link in the description too. It was so good.
I remember binging all of the fics on there. Everyone in that top tier, all of them made me feel emotions. So yeah, good job.
I think I mentioned in the post, even the ones that were
even
11,
the ones
11 and 12, I'm just like, these are so good, but they're only
fic list.
Okay, it's a good list in general.
Yeah.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, G3.
Okay. Should I tell them what it's about first?
Yeah, sure. Do whatever you want, I guess.
I suppose I forgot to do that.
It's up to you. You don't have to do to divulge as much as you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a collection of a bunch of one shots that are vaguely connected. By that, it's a champions get revived AU with a focus on their relationship to the successors. So Teba, Sidon, Riju, and Yunobo. And yeah, I will be reading chapter 1. Okay.
When the 5 spirits awoke, the world was bright. It was almost too bright. The colors were highly saturated, and everything seemed to have a watery look to it. The edges of their visions were slightly blurred, like in a dream. It was as if the world were a painting, pristine, vibrant, and untouchable. Somehow, this wasn't what they had imagined life after death to be like. The surroundings themselves were odd as well. At a first glance, it seemed like a normal village, albeit with a style of architecture unlike any village they knew. There were lovely houses and large buildings, all decorated with colorful streamers that flapped in the strong wind. The faint sound of wind chimes could be heard floating through the air. All 5 had awoken in a plaza at the base of a massive statue of the goddess. Then they looked out and saw that the land was floating high above the clouds. "Whoa," gasped Daruk, gazing out at the endless sky. "What is this place?" "The afterlife, perhaps," mused Revali. "I would have expected it to be more crowded." Urbosa frowned. "No," she said. "I refuse to believe that this is it." "You're right." They turned to see a young Hylian woman with long blonde hair sitting behind them. Short bangs fell across her forehead, and 2 sections were braided with ribbons in front of her shoulders, while the rest fell down her back. Her clothes were simple, a pink dress with a white shawl and the blue cloth resting across her hip. She sat cross-legged at the base of the goddess statue with a serene smile on her face, cradling a golden harp in her lap. Her blue eyes twinkled with knowledge beyond her years. "Who are you?" asked the king. The woman tilted her head. "I've had many names," she said, "but you may call me Zelda." The spirits glanced at each other, but the woman, Zelda, didn't elaborate any further. What did you mean when you said Urbosa is right?" Mipha asked. "Is this not the afterlife?" Zelda shook her head. "This is a middle place between life and death. I've I've brought you here to offer you a choice. A choice? Said Daruk. What kind of choice? Zelda waved her hand, and behind her, a door opened in the statue's pedestal. The doorway shone with a white light, making it almost impossible to see what was inside. If they squinted, the champions and the king could barely make out silhouettes of people inside. A pair of Gorons, countless Gerudo, a few Rito with what looked to be a Rito child, a petite Zora woman, and a single Hylian. The spirits instinctively knew where that door led. You can choose to move on, join your loved ones, and spend the rest of eternity in peace, said Zelda. Or you can go back. She pointed behind them towards a dark swirling vortex of clouds in the distance. You would be granted a new chance at life with all the risks and rewards that life entails. I can make no guarantee that your second chance would be easy or happy, but anything is possible. Zelda spread her hands with a quirk of her lips. I suppose you could call it a leap of faith. The five spirits said nothing at first, trying to process the offer that had just been made. Why? Finally asked Urbosa. Why would you do this for us? Zelda sighed, her smile growing softer. My descendant and her chosen knight have just defeated Ganon for good. They have freed themselves from eternal reincarnation, an endless battle that has lasted longer than Hyrule itself. I think they deserve a reward, don't you? Is that what we are? Asked Revali bitterly. Rewards for the great hero? Not if you don't want to be, said Zelda. The choice is yours. Revali huffed, but his eyes were drawn back towards the vortex. I'll do it. The other four spirits stared at Mipha, surprised that she would be so quick in her choice. My people still live, she said. Link, Zelda, my brother, my father, my friends. There's only one person waiting for me on the other side, and I will see her in time. Urbosa nodded in agreement. I will take it as well. My ancestors have waited this long. They can wait a bit longer. Oh, all right, grumbled Revali. I don't like being Link's reward, but I still have more to accomplish in life. Daruk hesitated. Do we at least get to say goodbye before we go? He asked. He stared straight past Zelda towards the two Goron silhouettes in the light. Zelda shook her head. You cannot choose both. Once you cross the threshold, there is no going back. Daruk sighed and set his jaw. All right, I'll go too. Zelda nodded, then turned to Rome. His eyes flitted from Zelda to the door, to the champions, to the cloud vortex, then back to the door. I can't. Revali's eyebrows shot up. Why not? Rome sighed. I'm an old man. I've lived my life and stayed long past my time out of a duty to my daughter and Link. I'm tired. He stared through the doorway towards the Hylian figure. He could make her out clearer now. And I would like to see my wife again. What about Zelda? Asked Urbosa. Rome chuckled. If I have learned anything in 100 years, it is that my daughter is the strongest, most capable young woman in all of Hyrule. I know that she will be just fine. Turning back to the Zelda in front of him, he added, Besides, she'll be here eventually, won't she? Zelda nodded with a warm smile, then beckoned him forward. As he stood before the glowing doorway, Rome looked back at the four champions. Give Zelda my love, he said, and tell her that I couldn't be more proud of her. And with that, the last king of Hyrule stepped into the light. There was a beat of silence, and then Zelda stood. Are you all ready to go? It's not too late to change your mind. Daruk shook his head, not looking at the open doorway. Let's do this. Suddenly, the four of them were all standing on the edge of a wooden structure that resembled the launch platforms of a Rito village, only instead of a lake before them, there was just a swirling vortex of clouds. Up close, it looked even darker, like an angry storm. Far, far below appeared something that could have been the ground, but it was too distant to tell. Ready? Zelda stood behind them, staring expectantly. A leap of faith, she had called it. Couldn't I just fly down? Revali asked. Even he looked nervous at such a drop. Zelda shook her head as a lightning flashed below. He could either choose to fall with the rest of them or stay behind. Those were the options. Urbosa took a deep breath, then stepped up to the edge and held out her hand. On the count of 3, Mipha took her hand, steely determination in her eyes. 1. Revali was next, offering his wing to Urbosa. 2. 3! Before he could think about it, Daruk grabbed Mipha's other hand and leapt off the platform, dragging the other 3 with him. As the 4 champions plummeted back to the surface, Zelda smiled to herself. And though no one was around to see it, her face perfectly resembled the serenity of the goddess statue watching over the island. For the first time in a long time, she was at peace. That's it.
Cool. I had to find the mute button. Yes, good job. Last time,
Thank you.
When Spicy finished her reading, I pressed the hang up button instead of the unmute button. So I wanted to make sure I pressed the right one. Bye. But no, I read this of course earlier, but it was only when you're reading it now where I was like, I bet Skyward Sword Zelda wanted to push him off though. Okay. Oh, that was very good. You were doing some voices there too.
A little bit. I was trying.
Yes. So you have joined the group of the people where it's like, I don't know, I haven't really practiced, and then like does an amazing reading, and I'm just like,
I mean, I was also nervous because I have a bit of a stutter. I don't know if you could tell, but I was just nervous that I would like get stuck a lot, and I did, but it was fine.
it was pretty smooth. I didn't even know you. I couldn't even tell you had a stutter.
Okay, cool.
Yes. Exactly. And if Craig had trouble catching that, then you have your recording that you're doing right now, so that's fantastic. Okay. My first question. I actually thought of another question. So I have a backup question. I'm gonna write it down in case Kip steals one of mine. But how has Age of Calamity and Breath of the Wild 2 influenced how you look back at writing this fic?
Well, I mentioned this in the notes of the fic, but Age of Calamity came out halfway through writing it. And so I did all this setup to make the combination possible so that I could put the 2nd gen and the 1st gen champions together, and then Age of Calamity came out and made all of that unnecessary. So when it first came out, when I first saw that big plot twist, I was like, crap, that's like the bad version. But yeah, but then I was just like, you know what, I'm already pretty much done. I just had Urbosa's chapter and the last chapter left. So I was just like, I'm just going to keep doing it and be like, okay, whatever. It's not compliant with this.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of fic writers, when they saw that plot twist and they had like their work in progresses all in their drafts, everyone, I think, collectively had an oh crap moment. So I'm sure, at least also personally, you are not alone when Age of Calamity came out. But
yeah, there was one thing though. When I saw them interacting with each other, especially the chapters that I had already written, I was like, I freaking nailed their relationship.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Like
yeah.
And like you probably don't even believe that it was written before that game came out, but like it was all written.
We believe you.
And personally, I think like, well, I guess that's just a thing with like the advantages of writing fan fiction, but you definitely captured them a lot better than how they were presented in just like those select few Age of Calamity cutscenes. So it's definitely, I'm not sure if the word is improvement.
I don't want to say you're right, but you're right.
Okay, I'm allowed to compliment you since you're the guest here. So.
Yeah.
So following this train of Age of Calamity talk, obviously you wrote this before, or well, you wrote the majority of this and had the plot before the game came out, but would you say there's anything that you would want to change in your thing, or maybe add on to now that you have the context of Age of Calamity for everything?
Well, I did kind of do that, because like, when I released this fic, it was already completely written.
Mm-hmm.
So I just did like one chapter a week, and I wrote the whole thing in advance. So I just went back and like changed some aspects. Like Revali's chapter got quite a few rewrites just because I had trouble with their relationship. But yeah, I like still stuck with Revali's main deal, which is very different from Age of Calamity. That's the big difference. But like, I did do a few tweaks here and there just to be like, oh, this is how they would talk to each other.
Right. And I feel like just comparing how Age of Calamity handled the relationships and how you handled the relationship is that, I mean, I have a lot of problems with Age of Calamity, and I'm not gonna get into it too much, but I feel like that the plot twist, I mean, spoiler alert, but I mean, it's been out for over a year. The plot twist where there's this potential for interaction that we'd never seen before between these people that are 100 years apart and separated by death. I feel like it was a little bit stepped on because of the calamity. Obviously, like, you don't have time to sit and talk.
Right.
Calamity.
Yeah.
Because
I feel like your fic really delved into that, and I appreciate that. And you did it very true to the characters. So
yeah. And with respect to Age of Calamity,
is my favorite thing to write. Sorry, what?
Oh, so yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, with respect to Age of Calamity, like, it is an entirely different environment that these characters are in compared to yours, which is like them meeting for the first time in a Hyrule that's been at peace for like half a year,
right.
And they have like a little beach episode at the end. That's a bit different than what goes on with it's the end of the world and we gotta kill like the Demon King and all of that. So strengths and weaknesses for both areas, but at least with your fic, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's a lot fluffier and more enjoyable because you have the time to like see these characters talk, and like you said, like you don't have time to do that when it's all guts and gore and fighting. All right.
Oh, I think it's
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it wasn't really to critique Age of Calamity, because I could do that and I don't want to get started. It was just kind of to observe that I think that's why it works so well on your part, is because it's just a different situation. Anyway, my next question, all three of my questions might be Kip's, but okay.
Oh boy.
You mentioned it in your notes, so now I'm asking, what are your headcanons for Daruk and Yunobo's pronouns?
Ooh,
nice.
Oh,
okay. So I like to think that Deruk, he's okay with pretty much anything. Like, you can call him she, you can call him they. He does not care. And Yunobo is more of a he/they. Like, he's pretty chill with it, but he does prefer he and sometimes they.
Right. Yeah.
Because I love me some non-binary Goron.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that the Goron, I mean, I think it's basically canon that they just don't have a gender, and that they don't have like an assigned gender, and that they kind of decide that for themselves. And I think that's really I don't want to say groundbreaking, but I'm sure other video games have done it before.
It's just a great place to like project onto.
Yeah,
you know, because
it's a great place to, like, in such a mainstream
video game.
Video game, and there's this concept of choosing your own identity, and I think that's really great. And even though, like, we're just talking about the Gorons, I think that freedom also carries over into other races, and we see that in Breath of the Wild. And I think that's just another facet of the freedom in the story. I'm going too much into it, but I think that it's great that you implemented that into your fic, and I really enjoyed you exploring that. And whenever you put in your notes that you had other things to say, but you're going to stop there, I was like, but don't.
Your notes are like a gold mine. You're like,
right?
Oh, I don't want to talk about this anymore. And I'm like shaking my screen. It's like, keep talking, please.
And then, whenever you say that, I'd be like, but you're on the podcast, though. We're going to make you talk. Okay.
No escaping now.
I don't want to like make people scroll past like notes that are longer than the chapter itself.
Fair enough. And then I guess there is a point where it's like, oh, if you have so many notes, then maybe you should write a new chapter. But then you get to the issue of, oh, you have to write a new chapter, and then that's
yeah, gross.
Right. But yeah.
God, imagine writing.
Imagine writing? Jeez. Couldn't be me on this writing podcast that I am co-hosting on. Anyway, another thing that I am grabbing from your gold mine of notes at the end of your chapters. So, other than dialogue, which you mentioned earlier, which this fic has just like great quality character dialogue and voice. Another thing you're really like putting a lot of like emphasis on is like the world building with like power struggles and how the kingdom is rebuilding. So specifically, I'm going to talk in like chapter 6 with the dynamic between Riju and Urbosa, but feel free to talk about any world building aspects that you have brain rot about. But what do you think is the future for the Gerudo now that Riju and Urbosa have this like unlikely like bond where Urbosa is willingly like supporting Riju as this young chieftain to the Gerudo?
I think that Urbosa would go on to become like somewhat of an like advisor to Riju, like that's what I was kind of like going with, where like Urbosa knows about politics. She can help her out sometimes when she's in over her head, and I don't think that Riju will like grow into a really like strong chieftain who like with Urbosa's guidance, you know.
And it kind of parallels a lot with like Zelda.
Trauma. Yes, that was a big thing in that chapter. Because like Riju was actually one of the hardest ones to like figure out what I wanted to do with her.
Oh, really?
Because like, I mean, I don't want to say like she does. I was like gonna say she doesn't really do much in the game, but that's blatantly not true. I don't know why I thought that. Yeah, but like I just had no idea how she would react to Urbosa, besides being like, "Whoa, it's Urbosa!" Right. Oh my gosh, and that's it.
I mean, for all of them, it's like they're meeting celebrities, and they're just like, do I live up to this? What do they think of me? Like, you know, all of them had that anxiety.
Plus, there was like the overlap between Riju and Urbosa and Daruk and Yunobo's whole thing.
Oh, right.
Like, they both have kind of a mentor-student relationship, and I didn't just want to do that again.
Right.
So I was like, okay, how can I like make some conflict here? Because, you know, we've had 2 chapters where they all get along nice, and then 1 chapter where they didn't. Right. And so I was like, why don't we just try and make them not get along super well? But like they do get along, but like Riju doesn't think they do.
Right.
Yeah, because
as I was like writing the outline, I was like, oh, poor baby's got imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And it doesn't help that there's kind of this otherworldly aura where it's like this legend from past all of a sudden comes down in a beam of light.
Right.
And then just like, I'm here now.
Yep.
That's not exactly helping your imposter syndrome, as you say. But
yeah, I tried to emphasize in that chapter was that like Riju realizing that Urbosa is human. You know, she's not this like godlike figure, so like she could joke around. There was that little story about how she couldn't walk in Naboris for a while. Right. So she had to not wear shoes in there.
Yeah, and it's funny you say like Riju realizing that Urbosa is like near human, because I also saw like kind of, I don't know if you intended this, but like another interpretation I saw, because like Urbosa just came from like being like a dead ghost to now like going back to the world of the living. So it's not only like Riju discovering that Urbosa is human, but it's also like Urbosa sort of like rediscovering her role in like the world of like the living after she thought she like her life was like over for like over 100 years. So I just thought it was really great on both parts for them to just like converse.
Okay, I'm gonna say that was totally intentional. That I totally planned that from the beginning, and you didn't just blow my mind or anything.
Oh, completely intentional.
Yep.
Whenever someone comments, you always say, "Yeah, I intended that."
Yeah, this is all your work. I can't come up with this stuff without reading your writing. So yes, definitely was all you're doing.
Right.
No irony there.
Yes. When I was reading, I was also thinking about how in Age of I'm gonna keep talking about in Age of Calamity.
It's kind of hard to avoid Age of Calamity with this kind of fic, you know.
Yeah.
In Age of Calamity, they brought the new champions to the past, but in this, you're bringing the old champions to the present, and you made it about them finding a new place in a place that was otherwise familiar. And so it's not just a struggle of these new champions overcoming their anxiety and their confidence in who they are, but also these other champions doing the same thing. Because they are their own legends to live up to. And they have their own human struggles where Revali just feels lonely, and Daruk misses his family and the people that used to be with him before the calamity. So there's human struggles on both sides, even though there's just legend to live up to. I am speaking nonsense. I'm gonna ask.
No, actually, that is where the title came from.
Oh, really?
Because, yes, the whole premise for this fic was like, okay, there's a lot of expectations going around with the old champions and the new champions, because like the old champions, they have these huge expectations, and the new champions have to try and live up to that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the old champions are like trying to live up to the new champions' expectations of them.
Oh.
And it's just back and forth.
That is so smart.
I was like trying to play with the way like those different expectations can be like subverted. So like for Revali's chapter, for example, it's about how Revali doesn't live up to Teba's expectations of him. And then like Sidon's chapter, it's about how Mipha does.
Mm-hmm.
I only caught the expectation for like the old champions doing reaching the expectations of like, the new champions reaching the expectation of like their old legends. But you're totally right, and like there's expectations like all around. I only just seen that now, so thank you for pointing that out. But yeah, that's really
it's all intentional.
It's all intentional. It's all connected. We're connecting the dots here.
Yes. We're like mystery solvers. Okay.
We are mystery solvers.
Yes.
The mystery of how to write good.
Yes.
And a corkboard and some red yarn. Let's do this.
Big mystery, and like all the guests it's a big mystery, and all the co-hosts are these detectives, and every guest we have on it has cracked the code, and we're just like, okay,
Tell us your secrets. You know? This is an interrogation now. Yeah. Tell us how you've done.
First you spend 9 months writing 7 chapters.
Oh. Is there another way you can do that? No, is there a slightly quicker
not write
way?
It and keep it in your head.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, right. It is my turn to do the interrogation. So, let's see. What, let's do something like a little bit simpler, but like what was your favorite dynamic to write for? Which I guess is kind of me saying which one was like your favorite chapter / so answer either of those.
Teba and Revali.
You know,
Teba and Revali.
I can tell, Alice. I can tell from the writing in that chapter because like, first of all, that's also my favorite chapter, but that might just be me being biased.
Those bird boys.
This is the bird boys. Yeah, exactly. But also, I could tell that like there's a lot of, I'm not gonna say like compared to like the other chapters because all the chapters were good, especially the last one. But there was like a lot of like nuance and depth in that chapter with like Revali and like hating Teba, but also like not hating him at the same time. He's just like figuring it out and stuff, right?
Yes. Like I think I mentioned it before, but that chapter went through like 4 rewrites because I just could not get Revali's attitude right. Because you know he's such a difficult character to write for. Because you know like you want to make him kind of a jerk, but like you also want to make him sympathetic, so he can't be too much of a jerk. And I had some trouble straddling that very fine line. But I'd like to think that
you hit the bullseye on there. You got his personality completely down, as opposed to Age of Calamity, cough cough. But yeah, you.
Yeah, that was my biggest issue with that game. But we won't get into that.
Yeah, and so is that also your favorite chapter / dynamic, or because I was gonna think like the first chapter and the last chapter, they're not so much focused on like one champion on the other champion, but like all of them as like a whole like found family. So were either of those?
I mean the first and second chapters are like my least favorite. I kind of hate them, but it's fine. But like the last chapter was like just fun, honestly.
Yeah.
I was just like, you know what? Screw it.
Beach
We're doing a beach episode.
And honestly, like I want this to come off as a tip for writers out there and not like anything to bring you down, but it seemed like that last chapter, as the one that you had the most fun with, was your best one. So like I think that's
really
yeah, I think it's kind of a lesson to everyone. It's just like
your passion writing, like shows through when you're having
the good
fun.
writing. I mean, all the whole thing was really good, but like the good writing will come through when you're really enjoying something, you know. So write what you're passionate about, and you were passionate about a really cute beach scene, like, and I loved like the different dynamics too. Because you don't see a lot of things with just, like people, certain like pairs just being friends, like are just like doing this thing, or, you know, yeah.
That was the main purpose of that one, to like get relationships that you wouldn't see normally, like Sidon and Riju. They would be best buddies.
Yeah,
come on.
best world too.
Yeah. Honestly, one of the most fun parts of planning that chapter was like finding the ways that the different segments could like interconnect with each other.
Right. Yeah. Because you're not going to see that anywhere else.
It's a bunch of separated little stories, but like there's an overarching little thing going on there.
Right.
Because you can't go wrong with found family.
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
Exactly. Okay, I
always need more found family fluff with these characters, man. I don't see enough out there, so I made my own.
That's what writing fiction is about, is that you don't see it out there, and you have to write it yourself, and then it sits in your works in progress for a long time, and you're like, I still have to write this?
Oh god. And like, yeah, the patience that you have to like publish like 7 chapters when really it was all about getting to like that one like scene. Like, isn't that the struggle for like 90% of like people in fandom, where they just want to get to that one scene, but you have to like set up all the parts before it. So like the fact that you have like all of these chapters and all of them are like great quality just to get to the beach episode, that's something to like be commended. That's, I don't know. I just like it.
Fun fact, it was originally, they were just writing practice. Like I just started doing science
This was
chapter
practice?
just because I was like,
God.
Yes, I know, science chapter especially was just practice. And I was like, hey, this is pretty good. I'm gonna write the rest of them.
It is more than pretty good. It is really great.
And then I was like, hey, I had this one idea of like Sidon and Riju surfing together. I'm gonna put that in there too. And it just spiraled out of control.
That's how the process is. People tuning into this podcast to see how writers do things. It's not calculated at all. It just spirals out of control. I don't know what to tell you. It's just
I almost didn't finish this because like Urbosa's chapter gave me so much issues, so many issues.
Oh.
But like I just got stuck for like 2 months. I didn't write anything.
Right.
Well,
Then I just picked it up one day. I'm like, let's do this.
Yeah.
You got through in the end, so good job, you from 2 months ago.
Yeah. It was way more than 2 months ago.
Oh, good job, you from an indeterminate amount of time ago.
It was like last winter.
Oh, God.
There you go.
Well, happy Christmas, winter, holiday, something. I don't know. Ignore me. That was a bad setup.
Yeah, this book is...
That's a quote.
I first started writing it over a year ago. Was when I started it.
I'm gonna put that in the description.
Don't.
I will. Okay. I'm gonna ask my last question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So G3, you don't have to answer this because, like, I don't know what subjects are touchy. I don't know, but you mentioned in one of your notes, I could be mistaken, that the relationship between Teba. I always say Teba.
I say Teba.
Bird, the white bird, bird and his son.
The white bird.
That father-son relationship was actually inspired by the relationship you have with your own father. So I wanted to ask if you wanted to kind of elaborate on that, because I thought that was really heartwarming and wholesome.
Yeah, basically it was inspired by the way that my dad used to kind of play with me, where, you know, he was kind of reckless about it, you know, and when I was younger especially, he was a little emotionally distant, but he does love me. I promise.
I believe you.
He didn't express that very well when I was a kid. And so he just kind of reminds me of Teba, which maybe doesn't bode well for Teba and Saki's relationship because my parents are divorced.
Oh.
But
not everything has to
I'm going to ignore that part.
It's okay. I didn't see a Teba and Saki divorce tag on here, so I think you'll be fine.
Yes.
Okay.
That was actually going to be kind of a plot point, that their relationship was kind of strained. But then I was like, I don't want to think about writing that because I like the bird couple. I like the fried chicken together. So
fried chicken.
Teba Saki, my favorite dish.
You didn't like intend to like put it there, but I could definitely see like some of the elements there where like Saki was like so tired of Teba like not doing anything or like talking to like Revali in like that first like part of the chapter.
Yes.
So you had those elements
those
there.
Are
so
leftovers.
I thought those were good.
The part of the beach episode where like it was all the grown-ups talking together. Mm-hmm. Teba wasn't going to be there originally. It was just going to be Daruk, Urbosa, and Saki, I think. Mm-hmm. And like she was just going to tell them about how she felt like their relationship was just like not going well. But then I was like, that's too sad for the beach episode. So I just put Teba in there. And they were cute together.
I liked it. And like the elements that were in there, it just made the relationship seem more realistic. Because like sometimes you'll read some fics have these relationships where everything's happy all the time, and it's like, well, is it though? Like that's not very realistic. And I feel like you presented a really realistic and a really sweet relationship, and it doesn't have to match up with your own experiences with your parents. Like
yes, I hope it doesn't for their sake.
You can just take your.
You can just take the best parts of what you know.
Exactly.
Make yourself the fluffiest, nicest, sweetest little fic, and then you can be happy, and then everyone else reading the fic will be happy as well, and it's great. And then next time,
Tulin be super cute.
Yeah, and then next time when we all want to emotionally hurt ourselves, maybe then we can use our experiences for that.
You can just read my other fic, Freezing Wind, which you can read on our pick of our own. That one's kind of the opposite of this one.
For me.
You got range. That's nice to know.
You got second place for a reason. I was sitting there just like, my heart.
It's like, man, they weren't lying.
That a little bit while I was writing it, so that's how you know it's good.
Yeah.
All right. So, am I doing my one question, or are we going straight to the Tumblr thing?
I can go to the Tumblr one, but if you have a question, then you can go.
Yeah, I have like 15 here because I'm over prepared for everything.
Wow. Okay, don't do all
no,
of them.
I'm not doing all of them. I'll just do one more.
One.
Do them all. Do them all.
The best one.
Okay, the best one. Let's see. Dang. Eeny, meeny, miny.
Oh no.
Okay, so this fic is obviously completed, but if you were to add another chapter focusing more on Link and Zelda, how would you go about that? How would you add on?
That's a good question. Maybe just like how Link has changed from and like to play into the expectations thing again, how like Zelda's expectations don't match up to who Link is now.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, because I suppose in this like Link would be the person like from the past that comes to the present, like kind of like the champions coming back from the dead, and then Zelda would be the one learning from him. Or are you trying to say the other way around? Or
I was thinking more the other way around.
Oh, okay.
Where like this
I did not
new Link he's like a new person. You know, and Zelda has to relearn how to be friends with him, and well, she just remembers the old Link, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she would have to try and reconcile the differences there.
And then they would both learn how to pilot the Divine Beast Varum, the the motorcycle thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say Divine Beast Roomba for a second, and I'm like, that's a Tumblr
I heard Divine Beast room, like a literal room, and I was like, are you trying to talk about them living in a tunnel?
Oh, well,
I always heard it
really dumb joke. Like they're in the room. Okay. Anyway,
I was just imagining just like the little speech bubble with like where there's like a little cartoon like motorcycle and vroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always saw that last Divine Beast as a Divine Beast Va Mole because it's underground.
Yeah,
that's cute.
That can work too.
Yeah.
It's like a unicorn, right? Well, how would you? It's like Va.
I have no idea.
Does it even have a Va name? I don't think so. It's called the Master Cycle, right?
It's just called.
It's just the last one.
Yeah,
I think
it's called the final.
I don't know. I haven't played it.
What were the Sheikah thinking? Who was just like they made these giant. Sorry, weird tangent. But what were they thinking? They made these giant like lizards and camels, and they were like, you know what beast needs to lead them all? This tiny little unicorn bike. That's the one that's gonna lead these giant, colossal beasts of technology.
But consider. It looks cool.
Okay, you've got me there. It does look very cool. All right, so Tumblr question time.
Waiting for your tangent. Okay.
Sorry.
We'll stop talking about Divine Beast.
Apologies.
It's like I'm at work, and I'm trying. And it's like the 7th graders. And I'm the sub all over again, and I'm trying to get them to do their work. No, it's not really like that. But sometimes they're a little loud.
They're just some little guys.
They're so little and yet they're so loud. Okay, guys. Anyway, okay. This one is kind of relevant to something we were talking about earlier, and it's going to be a big writer question. Are we ready for this?
Nice. Let's do it.
All of us are answering it.
Okay.
What do you do to get over writer's block?
Oh, this is a loaded question. All right. Well, guest of honor, feel free to go first.
Well, when I get writer's block, I don't touch it for 2 months, then get inspiration just out of the blue, and then frantically write like 5 pages. But that's just me.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
for a serious answer, I haven't quite figured it out yet, but basically just like making yourself just like write 1 or 2 sentences, and if that's it, come back tomorrow. But sometimes you'll just get going.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so I guess I'll take a crack at it.
Yep.
So there's a couple of like methods that I go through. Like obviously you got like your music, or like you read something for a reference, or like you find the like right environment. But all of that is kind of the exact wrong answer, because I think the most surefire way to get through writer's block is to write. And that sounds like redundant, but it's more specific. Like you should be writing garbage, you know? Because like I think the biggest thing that comes with writer's block is that you can't write because you don't know what you're going to write, and you don't know what you're going to write because you want to write something good. So as long as you write anything, like the 1 to 2 sentences, like you said, as long as you write anything, even if it's complete garbage toast, something that a 7-year-old would post on their what is it, like cringy, like OC one shot that isn't cringy because cringe culture is dead, but that's just an example. You should just write it anyway.
Baby's first Wattpad.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you should just write it anyway. Make the next My Immortal. Put that on your Google Docs, and then you're done. And then you're out of Google, and then you're out of writer's block. And then on a meta level, you can be like, wow, this is garbage, but now I know how to fix the garbage, rather than staring at a blank screen and being like, I don't know what to do with this. So that's Kip's tip. Be a terrible writer, and you'll get out of writer's block.
That should be a new thing on the Breath of the Wild Stories and Such Tumblr page. Kip's tips.
Kip's tips. Be bad at writing, and you'll get out of writer's blocks.
Okay. Kip's tips. Just suck.
Oh. Okay. So I had I think this was it was last semester of college, which was like just this past spring. I was taking a writing for film class, and my teacher, he informed everyone that there is no such thing as writer's block, and that people just use that as an excuse when they're lazy. I did not agree with him.
I do not agree either, I must say.
I do not agree.
I got his point. I got what he was trying to say. He was trying to say just write, but he was being a bit like I got what he was point, but I don't think it's just laziness, because I don't think that gives credit to the people who actually need to take mental and physical breaks for themselves.
Right.
And that isn't laziness. So there is that aspect of it. So that's just to discount people who say that too. There's no such thing as writer's block. You're just being lazy. Just write. And while what Kip said is right. You could just write just anything, but it isn't just about you're lazy, you're crap, just do it. You know, it's a lot more complicated than that, because you could have mental strains. You could need mental breaks. You could have myriad of physical things going on. And what Kip and G3 have said is absolutely correct. And my film professor, he's great, but he's a bit harsh. I think that writer's block comes from the fear of either or, and maybe both.
All of the above.
All of the above. Either the fear of putting the pen to paper and really wanting it to be perfect, like you're afraid of putting something down that isn't perfect, or, and this could also be or it comes from not knowing where you're going with the scene. So for the instance where you are afraid of it being perfect or not perfect, like definitely take Kip's tip, and just write something down. It could be garbage. And it really doesn't have to be perfect. Like, don't think of it as you must write down the most perfect sentence ever. And it shall not be changed. The gods above says that this sentence shall not be changed, and it's got to be perfect. And like, no, you just write down. For the instance that you don't know where you're going with the scene, that is the bit that is something that's personally for me the easier one to fix, because what I do is I read through what I have already. That's what I do a lot. I actually learned this from Once Upon a Time. When you start something, it may be one thing, but it may have evolved into something else as you write. So if you go back to where you started, you might have a different perspective on it now, like as a writer. So I'll read through what I have already wrote and see, okay, that's where I started, maybe it goes, and maybe that, like, triggers something in my mind, like, okay, that naturally goes to here. The beginning of what I've already done, reminding myself of that does help. And then also, what also helps is just going away from your computer, taking a walk, and thinking about it or not, sometimes that just does it. You know, if you don't know where you're going with the scene, stop looking at a document and maybe just, like, brainstorm a little bit in your mind while you're getting groceries or something. Like, where could this scene go? It's really hard to try to find where a scene is going if you're staring at a blank document. And it's really hard to get a scene going if you don't know where it's going, because a scene will be better written if you know what the conflict is and where it ends. Like, how that progression is and where you're trying to go with it. If you're just writing something, it'll never end. You don't know where to end it. And I run into that all the time. I'm talking for too long.
Right.
But it's okay. And I think that goes for more than just writer's block. I think just writing in general, like, even if you're, like, on a roll, if you've been, like, writing, like, 100K words in the last week, you should probably stop. And stop, like, obviously that's an entirely different opposite end of the spectrum, but, like, you should take the time to, like, stop and reread your work. Because if you've been staring at your Google Doc or Word document or whatever for like 8 hours on end, whether or not you're in writer's block stagnant mode or you've been writing 100K words, you should stop and, like, reread everything, because you don't know how your story has evolved. You don't know if you've, like, changed, like, the tone too much. Like, you need to, like, take the time and, like, assess the situation as a whole. It's not about, like, getting to, like, the finish line. It's about, like, making like a delicious little sandwich with all the ingredients are, like, nice in there, you know? So,
and that goes back to the importance of, like, having an outline too.
Obviously I'm being a hypocrite because I hate outlines, and, like, I don't hate them, but, like, I don't like making them, and I don't do it that often. But
I had this entire fic outlined before I even opened the Word document.
And that helps definitely with
it. Really helps. That helps.
Also,
where you're going.
I have one more tip to add. Don't be afraid to, like, skip around. You don't have to write in order. Like, for this fic, I wrote Sidon's chapter, then Teba's, then the first and second, then Yunobo's, then Riju's, then the last one. You know, there was no order. And that was just easier for me, where I could just, like, do the ones where I had a clearer vision and leave the other ones for later where I could think about it more.
Exactly. You should never write things in, like, chronological order, because I think you're not doing your fic service if you don't write the most interesting scenes with, like, what you're like in the best mindset. Like if you're in the mindset to write like the best like ending battle scene for your fic, but you want to like do everything chronologically, I think you're doing like a disservice to yourself. So you should, if you like, play to like whatever your strengths are in that moment, because you never know when that's going to come back. You never know when you're going to get an idea again or forget it. So definitely first make an outline so that you know what you're going to do, and then hop around and play everything to your strengths, and then just write, and then take a break, write again, write. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say one more thing on the subject, and then I'll go on to wrapping up. Okay, there's a difference between stopping writing to gain perspective of the work and stopping writing to take a break. A solid break. I just want to make sure that everyone in the audience knows that there is, yes, stopping writing to read through and like gain perspective and try to like think of where the scene is going, but there's also just as valid and maybe more valid taking a break, self-care, mental health, drink water, take a walk.
Yeah.
And it's not even just like, oh, it'll help your writing. It'll help you.
Yeah, that's your priority here.
Yes.
All right, listen, kids.
That's what I want to
Revali isn't real. He's not gonna kiss you. They're gonna be there at the end of it.
Painful, but yeah, okay.
Like, these are sorry to crush your dreams, kids, but these are fictional characters, and you should not be prioritizing them over yourselves. So take care.
Yeah.
Eat food.
It's not even just kids, like content creators in general, like
all of you adults out there that are spending your work days writing fics, stop that. I mean, don't stop that, because I'd like the content, but for yourself, stop that.
Even I have to remind myself, like, my audience is okay with me taking a break. Like, I forget that every single day, and I have to remind myself, like, they'll be there when I get back.
And even if they aren't, like, you know, who's gonna care if some kids on the internet...
If your audience leaves you after not posting for a week, then they're not a good audience.
Exactly.
Good riddance.
Honestly, the way that I got around that like anxiety, where basically how I used to do long fics was I would do like write the chapters and then I upload them as I finish them, and that just gave me so much anxiety because there's just so much pressure to update, and I was just like paralyzed.
Yeah.
So I wrote the whole thing in advance. I did not post a single word before the whole thing was completely done. And like obviously sometimes that means that you don't post it at all, but sometimes it means you actually get it done, which is what happened with me.
Right.
Yes. Very good. Okay.
Yeah.
We are nearing like an hour, so I'm gonna wrap up. So
yeah, we should move on.
G3, is there anything coming up? Let's see, not really coming up. Are you working on anything that you can talk about without spoiling anything? Or
self-promote.
Is there anything you are that is coming up or that is being posted that you would like to promote? This is the place. What's going on?
Not Breath of the Wild related.
Yes.
But I am.
Just know anything.
I do have.
Please.
I do have one fic for a webcomic called The Glass Scientist, which is about Jekyll and Hyde. It's very good. Highly recommend. And I'm actually. It's a 2-shot, and I'm like halfway through the second chapter.
All right.
Ooh, nice.
I actually posted the first chapter first, which kind of goes against my previous advice to just save it, but like that it's a 2-shot, and the second chapter's not that long, so it's fine.
Okay, we'll put that in the description below so people can check that out. And yeah,
you don't have to.
Yeah.
But I will.
Well, we will.
Breath of the Wild.
You have no choice in this. Faye has all the power here.
I have all the power.
Oh well, I guess if I have no choice.
See, this is an interrogation. We got the power. It's like...
Right, yeah.
I will also put Kip's info and all of your info, G3, the fic that we discussed today, and your AO3 account and your Tumblr account, so everyone can go follow you and go read.
Oh boy.
Go.
Freezing Wind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Read Freezing Wind, read Great Expectations and How to Defy Them if you haven't already.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what we have for today, unless anyone has anything else to say.
No.
Birds are fake.
Birds are fake. That's right.
Yep.
Birds aren't real. If you see
Sorry,
a
retail
bird,
fans, they're not real.
they're not real. Yep.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.